All right, D&D 5.5 has put out its first expansion, The Heroes of Faerûn, and that means I get new toys to play with. Woohoo! But of course, you all knew that the first toy that I would want to play with is the official updated Bladesinger, right? Right. So get ready to build the best Bladesinger ever. Welcome to D4. Hey everybody, so here at D4 each week I take a deep dive into character builds for my favorite role-playing games. I like to crunch numbers about them, I like to theorycraft about them, not so that I can tell you the right or the best way to build a character, despite my little intro there previously, but to, explore one way to build something in the hopes of creating a character that's, powerful, but also fun to play. So if you also enjoy creating characters for your favorite role-playing games, or if you're just looking for tips or ideas on how to build something you're thinking about playing, or if you just like theory crafting, then welcome home. This is where you belong, and I'm so glad you're here. So thanks for watching. My name's Colby. Okay, so it's finally here, and it's finally official. Even if you only use D&D 5.5 content at your table, you can play a Bladesinger again. My favorite subclass in the game, the one I've probably built around more than just about any other subclass, I think maybe, at least if we're talking 2014 rules, right? And definitely the subclass whose build video that I did early on in the channel helped grow this thing out of obscurity. I love Bladesingers. I love the fantasy of being a Gish, a spell sword, of wading into the thick of the fight, dodging, weaving, wielding the power of blade and magic, slashing at enemies, and throwing out potent control spells or devastating blasts of fire, teleporting to hard-to-reach places to ensure that the villain doesn't escape. It is, for me, the ultimate in fantasy play. And no one fulfills that fantasy better, for my money, than the Bladesinger. So, the Heroes of Faerûn book officially released a week ago, and I did a live recording of and reaction to all the subclasses and all the feats, as well as the new Circle Magic feature, which is right up here. But the Bladesinger got some nice changes from the version that we had previously in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, right, back in 2020. Chief among them, the ability to use intelligence for our attack stat, right? Intelligence is now the thing that affects our chance to hit and damage with weapons, or at least it can be. And to be clear, I think that's awesome. I might not have been as clear about my feelings on that change as I meant to be in that reaction video. Being able to be a little more sad, single ability score dependent, and to bump a single stat that will benefit not just your spellcasting prowess, but also your martial abilities, and even for us, our concentration and our armor class, it's fantastic. That said, not all of the changes were necessarily buffs. We can't use our blade song and wear any armor now, even light, which is potentially a setback since even though the mage armor spell is better than mundane studded leather, right? Magical armor exists, and now we can't access it. Yeah, I know, bracers of defense, etc., but those often require a precious attunement slot and aren't as good as especially some of the powerful and rare and better magical armor that you can get, right? But also, mage armor costs a spell slot. It only lasts 8 hours, not all day, so now you gotta track that and you might have to recast it. It can be dispelled, right? Beyond that change, there was a big change to the Bladesinger's level 14 feature Song of Victory. I'll talk more about that when I get there, but maybe I'll just kind of summarize some initial thoughts here as they end up really impacting how I plan out and build the character today. Taken together, the changes to the Bladesinger really nudge it more towards being a better caster and kind of away from being a better martial fighter, right? Being able to attack with your intelligence is awesome. They're likely going to be more effective with their spells now. But also, combined with the other changes, and just sort of taken in a vacuum, looking at the base class and subclass abilities, we're going to do a little less damage with our weapon attacks at higher level than before, and we'll probably be a little squishier. Now, you may really like this. You might think it makes the Bladesinger even more powerful than ever, and I'm not saying you're wrong. Or you might just think it's better for game balance. A Gish or a spell sword arguably shouldn't be better at doing the thing that martials are supposed to be good at doing because, well, they got spells too, right? If they're a little squishier, or a feature that adds damage to their weapon attacks gets nerfed, well, good. They're casters first, weapon attackers second, and squishier weapon attackers at that. In the end, Bladesingers are wizards. with some nice defensive buffs, and sure, ones who can make weapon attacks once in a while when they're not busy controlling the battlefield or throwing fireballs, right? That's probably the sentiment of a lot of people who play D&D 5.5. But the problem is, and I've talked about this on the channel before, for me and for many others, I want my spell sword to be a little more sword than spell. That's the fantasy. To be a martial melee striker who can also cast spells. And so changes that kind of nudge them, not completely remove them from, but nudge them away from the martial aspect, right? I can't help it. It makes me a little bit sad. That said, I definitely don't think that the Bladesinger is incapable of being an extremely effective and potent melee striker. Trust me. We will see strong evidence of this in the build today. I just feel like a lot of the talk I've been hearing around the changes for the new book have been, oh man, Bladesinger's got nothing but amazing buffs. And my take is a little more nuanced, I suppose. But don't worry, we're still gonna lay waste to the battlefield with glee and abandon. Ready to jump in? I am so excited to present D&D build number 235, Bladesinger 5.0, I don't even know what version of it we're on these days anymore. The Spellfire Blade, the true spell striker, the final Bladesinger, probably not the final Bladesinger, the most vicious of gishes. I'm singing with my blade, a song of spell and blade. Thanks as always to the fantastic suggestions from the Discord server. I think we'll keep it a little simple today and go with the suggestion from Nalian, the Faerûn Bladesinger. Huge thanks to my good friend Randall Hampton for the fantastic artwork that he put together for the build this week. He always does this. I love what he comes up with. If you'd be interested in following him to check out the other stuff that he does, or maybe even to try and commission him to create some art for your character or even your entire party, I'll put links in the video description as always on how to do so. But first, I am so excited to talk to you guys about the sponsor today, the one, the only, Obvious Mimic. Yes, the maker of this and other amazing t-shirts that I'm always wearing in my videos, but also the maker of the best D&D solo play adventures the world has ever seen. Hang on a sec. I think the last time the Obvious Mimic sponsored a video was the last time that I did a Bladesinger video. It was for Baldur's Gate 3 though. How do they know? Are they just getting lucky, or did they love Bladesingers as much as I do? Anyways, right. Do you love to play D&D, but wish you could play it more? Even and maybe especially when you can't get your group of friends together? Maybe you've got a new character that you'd like to try out. Maybe you're a forever DM who just would like to relax and play in someone else's world once in a while without having to prep. Maybe game night got canceled. Or maybe you're just feeling like cozying up by the fire with a warm drink while it's raining outside and losing yourself in an epic adventure. Well, if any of those things are even occasionally true for you, you are going to want to check out Obvious Mimic's fantastic solo adventures. But above all, their most recently announced solo adventure that's in Kickstarter right now at the time of this video release, but it's only got 2 days left. 2 days. It's called The Streets of Port Noir, and it looks like it's going to be their best one yet. It will have you navigating a criminal underworld, retrieving a mysterious client's stolen property, and saving the city, hopefully, along the way. As with all of Obvious Mimic's solo adventures, in the Streets of Port Noir, you pick your own path. You play your own D&D character, and there are no DMs, maps, or minis required. You're going to fight monsters, cast spells, potentially, and find treasure with an original story. You make progress with loot and experience that you keep in a regular tabletop game. Of course, all of their solo adventures are designed to work with regular tabletop sessions as well, right? The characters are fully functional D&D characters, so they can be carried over into regular sessions. Thus, Obvious Mimic's solo adventures can be a great supplement to group play, not a replacement. If nothing else, I say use them to help create your character's backstory before starting a campaign with your friends. There are Obvious Mimic adventures for a level 1 character, level 2, level 3, level 4, and now with Port Noir, level 5. So try out a character, get comfy with their personality, get some history with them, find their voice, right? And then jump in to your group campaign, yeah? The Streets of Port Noir totally destroyed their funding goal, and there are only 2 days left to back it. So hit pause. Click on the link in the video description and the pinned comment so that they know I sent you, and back this project. You won't regret it. And for those who want to get their hands on an existing solo adventure now, or some awesome D&D themed t-shirts, go to their website, obviousmimic.com, and when you're checking out, use the discount code Colby10 to save 10% off your order. All right? All right. Big thanks to Obvious Mimic. I love everything you guys create, and I really appreciate your support. Okay, let's get back to the build. Okay. At level 1, for our starting class, we're not going fighter. Hang on a second. Yeah, I know. I'm just as surprised as you are, believe me. Okay, so real talk. Starting fighter would be a good idea, mechanically. You get lots of goodies that we want, but maybe above all, Constitution saving throw proficiency to help protect our concentration. And I am actually going to be taking fighter levels on this build eventually, but it's actually not going to be for quite some time. So especially knowing that, starting with a level in fighter, not a bad idea at all. That said, now that we're freed up to focus on intelligence above all, even as a melee striker, I'm slightly less worried about our concentration, especially since I'll maybe even be able to put another point into Constitution character creation than I used to, right? Since I used to make intelligence my secondary stat and con was my third, right? I mean, okay, the last Bladesinger that I built using the 2024 rules, but the old Tasha's version of the subclass right up there, had a +7 to their Constitution saving throw at level 6, right? 14 intelligence gave a +2 when Bladesong was active, right? Saving throw proficiency gave them a +3 because I started with a fighter dip. And then they had a 14 Constitution for 2 more. The way that we're going to build today, by level 6, we'll have a 3 from our Constitution and a 4 from our Intelligence, so +7. It's the same. So it feels a lot easier to delay or even totally skip fighter. Also, I don't need weapon proficiencies as bad as I used to, as we'll see. And so, yeah, even though I would love to have weapon masteries and a fighting style, no doubt, the truth is our damage is going to be significantly better at both levels 6 and 9, our first 2 damage reports, right? If we just straight class wizard this thing for a while. So yeah, sure. If you really want to prioritize your concentration, go ahead and dip fighter here and take a small delay to your damage. Nick and 2-weapon fighting help narrow that gap, but putting off extra attack until level 7 is rough. So we're going straight wizard for a while. For our species, yeah, I'd recommend elf, but I don't apologize. I mean, you used to only be able to go Bladesinger if you were an elf, right? Lots of precedent and lore here, and to me it just feels the most right. And yes, sure, elven accuracy is great, but we won't be getting that feat for a while, so I'd probably consider elf even if I couldn't use that feat. However, my 2 strongest alternative suggestions would be Hill Giant Goliath for the ability to knock enemies prone and thereby get you more consistent advantage as a melee character, but maybe better yet, Tortle. Yeah, Tortles are among the best Bladesingers, and now they're better than ever because your AC ends up being a flat 17 as a Tortle if you don't use any armor, right? You don't add your dexterity modifier, but as a Bladesinger, we get to add our intelligence modifier when we're Bladesinging, right? Meaning that we would start with a 20 AC at level 1 if we were a Tortle, and we'd get to 22 before long. Pretty amazing. So if you want to make yourself nigh unhittable and you can play with older content, give a long, hard look at Tortle. Make yourself a nice Leonardo Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, right? With magic. But if we went elf, as for the elven ancestry, I'm just going to say pick your favorite. I'd probably go wood elf just to really lean into the speedy aspect with potential for great stealth, right? Thanks to Pass Without Trace. But the other options are fine. Or, of course, Eladrin or Shadar Kai if you can, which might be even better. As for our background, I say sure go old background or custom one if you can, but if you can't, we actually have 2 options now, Merchant or Mulhorandi Tomb Raider from the new Faerûn book. It's pretty cool. They both give the ability score increases that I want and the origin feat I want, which is going to be, yes, lucky, as it so often is, because I love on-demand damage, and that's what Lucky gives us, proficiency bonus times per day on any d20 test. As for our ability scores, I assume that we're going the point by method as always and say let's take a 15 intelligence +2 there, a 15 constitution and a +1 there, and then a 14 dexterity. You could swap the dexterity and constitution there if you wanted to prioritize armor class and initiative and stuff, right, over constitution and concentration checks. But yeah, I think especially not starting fighter, I'd probably lean constitution personally. And yeah, having a 16 con right at level 1 makes that d6 hit die feel a little less painful as well. As for our starting equipment, we don't need any armor, of course, but we would want some weapons. For the first few levels, you're probably just going to want to use a light crossbow, but eventually we will want a couple of light d6 weapons, probably short swords or scimitars, right? Scimitars look cooler and more elven. Let's go scimitars. And I guess we could make a little use of like a D8 longsword or rapier or something as well. I'll get to it in the damage report. As a level 1 wizard, then, we get Ritual Adept, first of all, which says that we can cast any ritual spell that's in our spellbook, even if we don't have the spell prepared. That is some really great utility, and I'd highly recommend squeezing in as many ritual spells into your spellbook as you can for that reason. We also get Arcane Recovery, which says that once per day after a short rest, we can recover spent spell slots equal to half our wizard level, rounded up, but none of them can be above a 5th level spell slot. It's always useful. Finally, there is the best thing about being a wizard, the spells, right? And as always, especially for wizards, there are a ton that I would love to have, but there are a few here that I would consider pretty paramount to the build, so I'm just going to focus on those. Take what you want for the rest. We gotta have True Strike. It's a cantrip that we cast as an action, and it lets us make a weapon attack with our spellcasting stat instead of strength or dexterity, and then after level 5 even adds a little extra damage. That means with a light crossbow now, it would do a d8 plus 3 here, which is as good as or better than any cantrip that we'd cast damage-wise. This spell will become even more important later. We gotta have shield, because it lets us use our reaction when we get hit to increase our armor class by 5 for the rest of the round, and that's amazing for survivability. We gotta have mage armor now, right? Especially for survivability as well. It increases our armor class to 13 plus our dexterity modifier. Later it'll get an intelligence bump too, yeah. It lasts 8 hours, that's nice. I wish with all of my heart that WotC would just get rid of 8-hour duration spell times though. Just make them until your next long rest, please. Or 16 hours. Don't make me constantly have to ask my DM what time it is, or try to second guess at what time of day we're going to be fighting, right? Please. Ugh. And then finally, we've got to have Find Familiar, of course. I need a pet. They're great for recon, for delivering touch spells from far away, and yes, I want it to take the help action in combat to potentially give me advantage on my first attack. Make sure that if you don't know how your DM handles this help action with familiars thing at their table, that you discuss it with them beforehand. Watch this short up here for clarification. Wait, what about Booming Blade? Green Flame Blade? Aren't we taking those? That is a staple of D4 Bladesingers. Yeah, it has been. And sure, if you can fit it, if you want it, go for it. The damage is slightly better than True Strike, potentially, but True Strike is better for us now at early levels since it lets us use our intelligence to hit and damage, right? And not just our dex. There will be some use cases for Booming Blade, especially I think later on. We'll talk about it later. But the True Strike damage is actually going to be better for us most of the time as well. We'll get into that in a little bit. At level 2, we get Scholar, which simply gives us expertise in like one of our intelligence skills that we're proficient in. And that is it. Price we pay for being wizards, I suppose. A crappy level 2. Speaking of paying a price, allow me to try and encourage you to give me some money. Stupid capitalism. No, allow me to give a shout out and some love to my channel members and patrons, please. If you would, you guys, thank you so much for your support. I could not do what I do without you. This channel exists thanks to your support. If you're not a member or a patron, I'd love it if you'd consider becoming one. There's a little link down there. It says join, or you can look in the video description to, see links to my Patreon and learn about like the little perks that I give to my members and patrons. I give all of my perks to all of my members and patrons who just sign up at like the silver level or higher, and I just ask that you'd pay what you think it's worth, what you feel you can afford. Those perks include access to the library of write-ups that I make for all of my builds, so you can recreate them yourself a little more easily without having to go back and rewatch, right, or take notes. Access to the community Discord server, and access to the live monthly Q&A hangout sessions that we have. If you are not interested in supporting in this way or don't feel like you can afford it, that's fine. I'm just glad you're here. Watching, liking, subscribing, all of those things are great ways to support the channel too, so thanks. At level 3, we get our subclass, and yes, we've arrived at the promised land. We get to be a Bladesinger. And by the way, the subclass is actually called Bladesinger now, not Bladesinging. And I really appreciate that change because we've all been calling them Bladesingers all along anyways, right? Let's actually read the updated flavor text that we get here in the book. Wield weapon and wizardry in elegant tandem. Nice alliteration there. Bladesingers master a tradition of wizardry that incorporates swordplay and dance. In combat, a Bladesinger uses intricate, elegant maneuvers that fend off harm and allow the Bladesinger to channel magic into devastating attacks and a cunning defense. Many who have observed a Bladesinger at work remember the display as one of the more beautiful experiences in their life. A glorious dance accompanied by a singing blade. Wait a sec, that's almost exactly the same. Oh wait, there's more. Blade singing is associated with the ancient elven societies that first mastered the art and coined the term. Even today, most Bladesingers still hail from old elven realms, such as Myth-Drannor, or from non-elven societies that share land and history with elves, such as the Silver Marches. Wherever they hail from, Bladesingers take their talents all across the realms to help common people and perform heroic deeds. Most communities greet the arrival of a Bladesinger as a good omen. Nice. They gave us a lot there. They knew how much we loved them. Okay, so we get 2 features here. First up, training in War and Song gives us proficiency in all melee martial weapons that aren't two-handed or heavy now, as opposed to just, having to pick one weapon. That's awesome. Also, we can use a melee weapon for our spellcasting focus. Thank you. And now that we don't need it as badly due to how easy it is to draw and stow weapons on our turn. That's okay. Some nice quality of life improvement there. Finally, we get proficiency in acrobatics, athletics, performance, or persuasion now instead of just performance. That's nice. But then there's the real meat of the subclass, the Bladesong feature, which says that intelligence modifier times per day used to be proficiency bonus times per day, and recovering 1 use of it when we use arcane recovery. That's nice. We can use a bonus action to activate our Bladesong, which gives us the following benefits for 1 minute, so long as we are not incapacitated. Don't use 2 hands to make a weapon attack, and don't don any armor now or a shield. We get a bonus to our armor class and to our concentration checks equal to our intelligence modifier, 10 additional feet of speed, advantage on acrobatics checks. This is all unchanged, but then now, yes, weapon attacks can use our intelligence to hit and damage. That is one really fantastic feature. And it's one of the main things that makes us an awesome Gish. It's too bad, I think, that they didn't give this the same treatment as, say, the Vengeance Paladin's Vow of Enmity or the Devotion Paladin's Sacred Weapon, where you just turn it on when you attack an enemy. Oh well, can't have everything, I suppose. I get greedy, I know. We also get 2nd level spells at this level, and let me mention a few. Blur is a great way to improve our defenses if we want to give up concentration for it, giving enemies disadvantage on attacks against us. Mirror Image is another great defensive move, potentially causing enemies to hit your illusory duplicates rather than you, and it doesn't require concentration. Misty Step is always useful for teleportation. Web is great for control. And then we've got some interesting new spells from the Heroes of Faerûn book. I'm not going to go over all of them at every spell level or anything, but Elminster's Illusion is fun. Another defensive option if we're fighting spellcasters, requiring concentration but giving us advantage on saves against magic and having us take no damage against like magic and spells when we do succeed on a save if we'd normally take half damage, right? So kind of like evasion. But yes, above all, of course, we've got to take my darling baby, Shadowblade. My biggest disappointment, I think, maybe, with the Heroes of Faerûn book was not the Winter Walker Ranger or the Banneret Fighter, but it was that they didn't update Shadowblade and stick it in the book as one of the new spells that's available. Come on, WotC. You could have given it weapon mastery and maybe put some verbiage in there that says it's worth at least 1 silver. Okay, so yes, I have always loved this spell. I always will. It's a bonus action to cast, it requires concentration, and it summons a blade of pure magical gloom that counts as a finesse, light, thrown melee weapon that we're proficient with. When we attack with it in dim light or darkness, we have advantage on the attack, and it does 2d8 psychic damage on a hit. 3d8 if we upcast it at 3rd level. Packs a big punch. But I'll address this now. Could we true strike with a Shadowblade? Rules as written, probably not, since just like the blade trips, right, it requires a weapon that has a monetary value, and while there are plenty of reasons out there for why this weapon would have a monetary value, there's none technically listed, right? But for the vast majority of you, based on multiple polls that I've done, yeah, it's fine. Even Jeremy Crawford said he'd allow it. And if you can't at your table, there are other options for concentration out there that do very comparable damage at early levels, and at later levels, sadly, we're not even going to rely on the spell, so it's by no means a game breaker if you can't, like, true strike with a Shadowblade. Okay, moving on. at level 4, we get our first general feat, and what intelligence half feat should we take to bump that intelligence to 18? Elven accuracy? Probably not yet. Wouldn't be a bad choice, but no, I'm gonna hold off. Warcaster? Wrong again. Actually, this would probably be an even better choice, despite our solid concentration check bonus, but that's a defensive move. Just because I didn't start with a fighter dip doesn't mean I've abandoned all my principles. I think we should play with our new toys. Let's grab the new Spellfire Adept feat, shall we? This is fun and potentially harmful to ourselves. Right up my alley. Okay, let's dig in. This feat has a prerequisite of being a caster or taking the new Spellfire Spark Origin feat, which I considered but ultimately decided against for a variety of reasons. But the feat raises a mental stat by 1, right? So now we've got an 18 intelligence, sweet, and then says once per turn, when we deal radiant damage, we can expend up to 2 of our hit point dice and add them to the spell's damage. Sweet. Makes me wish we weren't D6 hit die characters. Oh well. Also, we ignore radiant damage resistance, which almost never comes up, but cool if it does. Right, so guess which spell we very often use that deals radiant damage. If you said True Strike, you win. And thus, yeah, farewell Booming Blade. So long as we've got the hit dice to burn. Anyways, so yeah, I mean, should we be doing this all of the time? Obviously not. But obviously, I'm going to assume that we are. I mean, truly, it's going to depend on your table, of course. How many combat encounters do you typically have between long rests? Do you have a solid healer in your party? Can you easily craft or buy lots of healing potions if you need them, etc., etc.? If you burn through all of your hit dice, almost die, then get a short rest, but your healer's all out of spell slots, you're going to feel really bad about taking this feat. So you should 100% make a different choice if you think you'll be in that situation semi-regularly. Or maybe postpone it, take it later when you've got more hit dice to spend. But if we're trying to maximize damage, 2d6 more damage on our turn. Caution to the wind, I'm going down in a blaze of glory. In reality, I might just save this for like when I crit, right? Or when I think the enemy is this close to death, yeah. It's kind of like a mini smite option. I love it. I'm taking it. Take something else if you want. You don't need to explain yourself. At level 5, we get Memorize Spell, which is a nice little quality of life feature that says after a short rest, we can swap out one of our non-cantrip prepared spells for something else from our spellbook. Handy little utility there, especially when combined with our Ritual Adept, right? We've got a lot of kind of access to great utility spells. We should have a spell for just about every situation fairly readily available, which is nice. But then we get the wonderful 3rd level spells too, and I want them all. But yeah, for now, I'm going to assume that we're concentrating on Shadow Blade still when I crunch numbers, not knowing what magic weapon or weapons you may have or may not have. Shadow Blade looks best in a vacuum, but yeah, of course, consider Blink and Catnap and Counterspell or Dispel Magic or both. Fear, Hypnotic Pattern, Slow, Fireball, you gotta have Fireball. Fly's handy, Tiny Hut, it's great. Haste if you have like one really amazing magic weapon already, I think. Spirit Shroud if you got a couple of good ones. Anyways, use what is best for you. Don't forget, at level 5, True Strike does get a bump so that it does an extra d6 of damage when we hit with it. At level 6, yes, we finally get that extra attack. Ours says we can replace one of those attacks, right, with a wizard cantrip, specifically, that's new, that has a casting time of an action. And this brings us to our first damage report. So here is what combat would look like potentially for us at this level. On round 1, we'd start our Blade Song with our bonus action first. Yeah, I'd love to get Shadow Blade going on round 1, but that feels a little silly since it requires concentration and we want to get those defensive buffs going first, right? Little bummer. C'est la vie. We then make an attack with our sword, right? We're still in level 1. And I mean, sure, fine. Let's assume that it's a rapier or a longsword, I guess, since we aren't dual wielding yet. We'd use True Strike on the second attack, adding a d6, and sure, blowing a couple of hit dice for 2d6 more if we wanted to, if it hit. Sheathe that blade when you're done, though, because on round 2, we're casting Shadow Blade with our bonus action and doing the same thing, but this time for 3d8 each hit. On round 3, finally, we'd do the same, but we would draw our scimitar and make a bonus action attack with it if you've got nothing else better to do with your bonus action. It's only going to hit for a d6 plus nothing, so it's not that important. And then round 4 is the same thing, but we're out of hit dice. Yikes. That's okay, it's round 4. Fight's almost over, right? We're just on cleanup duty. Now, I'm going to assume that we're getting advantage on our first attack from our familiar, and we're using a luck point on our second attack again until round 4, since we'll be out by that point. Alas, that bonus action attack won't have advantage, but it's okay. It's just a little, like, try and finish them off move anyways. I will note that, again, yeah, if you think you'll regularly have multiple combat encounters per day, definitely consider going Hill Giant Goliath so that you can try and knock enemies prone for advantage too, right? Especially if you have a DM who's in the habit of targeting your familiar. Or yeah, starting with that fighter dip so that you can get the Vex weapon mastery, and that's going to help you maintain advantage as well, right? Under the above assumptions though, averaged over a 4-round combat encounter, against enemies with a 10 AC, we would do 43 damage per round, and against a 15 AC, it would be 38. DPR. And compared to other DPR builds that I've done to date, that's really good. It's better than the last Bladesinger that I did at this level, and it's basically like middle of tier 1. Reminder, if you're curious to know what I'm talking about when I say tier 1, check the video description. I've got a link to graphs where I kind of compare all of these damage builds to one another. But boy, are we blowing through resources, right? Luck points and even hit dice. Living on the edge. The good news is we only used 1 3rd level spell slot, and we've got 3. Also, if you're in dim light or darkness, you've got advantage on those Shadow Blade attacks, and I mean, that's not too hard to come by in most campaigns, in most encounters, so maybe you're not blowing through those luck points quite as quickly. Maybe you're saving those hit dice for times when you just really need to finish off an enemy or you crit. So yeah, it feels fairly sustainable. And hey, you're a level 6 wizard, meaning you could be throwing out fireballs. Or sure, Hypnotic Pattern or Web. Your damage in that case would take a dip, but your power is arguably greater. So maybe once you're out of hit dice, go into kind of regular wizard mode. Sit back, throw out a control spell, and pepper your enemies from afar with a crossbow and cantrip. This is precisely what we love about being a Bladesinger, right? All those delicious options. Okay, where do we go from here? The answer is, of course, more wizard levels at level 7, because at level 7 we get 4th level wizard spells, and that's just kinda game over. Because yeah, Dimension Door is great, Polymorph is great, even the new backslash spell is pretty fun, letting us use our reaction to reduce any damage we take by 4d6 plus our intelligence modifier, and return 4d6 damage to the enemy who dealt it if they're within 60 feet, or half damage on a constitution save. I like it. But we all know where we're going here, right? Conjure minor elementals, and before you object, I honestly think that the rebalanced version of this spell that came out in the errata a few months ago is decently balanced. It's still good. It's very good, of course. In the right situation, amazing, and yeah, stronger than other spells like it, but it does require an action to cast, and that is a bit of a check on its power. Plus, I mean, 4th level spell slot and concentration, right? You could be polymorphing or fearing or sure, fireballing. But yeah, Conjure Minor Elementals, it's an action to cast, it lasts 10 minutes, that's nice, so it could potentially be going when combat starts, or even last for more than one fight if you're like in a dungeon crawl going from combat to combat, right? But I don't typically assume that we've got a 10-minute spell going when combat breaks out, unless we've got like Subtle Spell or something that we can use to kind of cast it right before we roll initiative. But then, yeah, the spell adds an extra 2d6 of damage to all attacks that you make against enemies that are within 15 feet of you. That area is also difficult terrain for enemies, it's a nice little bonus, and the damage can be acid, cold, fire, or lightning. We choose when we make the attack. I love the versatility there. Best of all, yes, it scales by 1d8 for every level that we upcast it. Spells like this are the main reason why I so often rant about martials not scaling as well as casters, but on this build, today, I'm not complaining. Come on, it's a Bladesinger. I want to be the best at everything. Working as intended. Totally balanced, tongue-in-cheek, let's move on. At level 8, we get another feat. And yeah, sure, in the name of damage overall, again, let's grab Elven Accuracy. It is going to bump our intelligence to 20, and then it says that when we make an attack with advantage using dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, or charisma, we get to roll 3 dice instead of 2, basically. It's so good. But if you prefer Warcaster, I won't tell you that you're wrong. I will definitely say, though, that you probably should have taken a different species if you're still not taking Elven Accuracy, right? Unless you're playing like a really late game campaign, or you just love elves for the lore. It's a bummer that either feat will only raise our intelligence to 19, but we do want both of them, so I'm gonna suffer with the odd number for now. All right, at level 9, we get 5th level wizard spells, and while of course you probably should be concentrating on Wall of Force or Hold Monster for some amazing control, yeah, I'm going to assume that we're using that 5th level spell slot to upcast Conjure Minor Elementals to do an extra 3d8 damage per hit. I'd probably also pick up Synaptic Static here, as well as those nice control spells, because I love doing big AoE damage and debuffing enemies while at it. But level 9, we have arrived at the next damage report. Since last check, we've swapped out our concentration spell for Conjure Minor Elementals. Adios, Shadowblade. Thanks for all the fish.
So long, and thanks for all the fish.
We've also improved our hit and crit chance thanks to Elven Accuracy, and I suppose added some more hit dice for Spellfire damage and 1 more luck point. But yeah, don't forget that on round 1, we're doing 0 damage now, yeah? Blade Song bonus action, and then Conjure Minor Elementals with our action, and then like just wink at the bad guys to try and get under their skin. Rounds 2 through 4, though, we're just making our short sword or scimitar attacks for a 1d6 plus 3d8 each, using our bonus action for an attack as well every time, though that old school 2-weapon fighting without any weapon masteries or fighting styles to augment it, but adding the damage from Conjure Minor Elementals. And yeah, when True Strike hits, we're piling on some hit dice. The damage still looks great on paper, but if you don't get to start combat with Conjure Minor Elementals already going, it will try your patience a bit. And of course, as always, yeah, we've got great control and utility options too, so feel free to throw out a slow spell instead and just wade in there with your weapons and your Blade Song and your True Strike to do a little extra damage and make a nuisance of yourself while you shut down the battlefield. I love both options. But at this level, averaged over a 4-round combat encounter, we would, against enemies with a 10 AC, do 57 damage per round, and against a 16 AC, it would be 53 DPR. And I mean, that's good, but it's not amazing. That's maybe more like bottom of tier 1 or top of tier 2 compared to other builds at this level. And in fact, worse than the Bladesinger that I did for 2024 rules using the old Tasha's version of the subclass. Why? Well, let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up. But I will do so after level 14. I don't want to have to repeat myself. For now, let's just press on. At level 10, we get Song of Defense, which, you know, used to be a feature that I was kind of an apologist for. I didn't think it was great, but it had some usefulness once in a while. But now, it might be worse than ever. See, it didn't change. It says that when you take damage, you can use your reaction in a spell slot to reduce the damage by 5 times the spell slot level that you expend. And sure, sometimes you get crit, or the enemy rolls so high that shield wouldn't help, right? Or you're not taking damage from an attack, period. So this might be worth using in those scenarios. But, I mean, that new backlash spell that I mentioned earlier, it scales and basically reduces damage by 3.5 on average per spell slot level expended, plus your intelligence modifier. So it's about the same amount of damage reduction on average, maybe a hair less depending on the spell slot level you spend. But then, yeah, it also returns damage to a creature that hurt you. So it's hard to know why you would use Song of Defense now, right? If you had access to that spell. I guess Song of Defense would potentially let you save a spell preparation. That's not nothing, but if you can spare the spell preparation, Backlash is pretty much always better unless you're not being damaged by another creature. Maybe it's a trap or something, right? But even then, Backlash is basically as good. Kinda bums me out knowing that this spell was coming into the book, that Wizards of the Coast didn't give Song of Defense a little bump or even a total rework. Ah well. At level 11, we get 6th level spells, and you probably want Mass Suggestion to just end a combat encounter all by yourself, or Contingency for a nice backup plan option when something happens, right? But there's always Chain Lightning for some solid multi-target burst damage. Or, sure, Tasha's Bubbling Cauldron, which would let you craft a bunch of potions of growth, among other things, that you could take yourself and even distribute among your allies so you can grow large and add a d4 of damage to all of your weapon attacks. The potion only lasts for 10 minutes, but it would be an extra 3d4 of damage per round for us. And yeah, giving out potions to your weapon-using friends could be extra damage for your entire party, right? I mostly just love the idea of showing up to combat with 3 or 4 large PCs to scare the pants off the enemies who assumed that they were going to be fighting medium opponents. But you know what spell I'm actually going to recommend above all others here? At least for damage purposes, the brand new, shiny, sparkling Elminster's Effulgent Spheres. This spell is awesome. It lasts an hour, it doesn't require concentration, and then has 6 spheres orbiting you, and while they're present, you can use them for one of 2 different things. Either you use one as a reaction when you take elemental damage to gain resistance to the damage, like the Absorb Element spell, and so I'd say take the Absorb Elements spell and don't waste one of your orbs on this. Because, yeah, better yet, for our purposes, you can use one of the orbs as a bonus action to make a ranged spell attack against a target and do 3d6 elemental damage of our choice. I mean, on the one hand, we're already making a bonus action attack with an offhand weapon, right? We're 2-weapon fighting here. But right now, the weapon portion of the damage anyway is paltry, right? It's just a d6. The main reason that we want to do that with our bonus action is because we're adding Conjure Minor Elementals damage, right? But guess what? Since this new spell also makes an attack, it would trigger Conjure Minor Elementals too, as long as we were within 15 feet. And yeah, it's a damage bump because it's 3d6 instead of the 1d6 from our weapon. 2d6 more damage isn't huge, but it's something. And more importantly, it's finally going to let us get one more attack on our turn. I'll explain why in a minute. For now, just don't forget that True Strike at this level gets a bump as well. It's now doing an extra 2d6 damage when we hit with it. At level 12, we get another feat, and yeah, okay, I'll finally take Warcaster so that we can cap our intelligence at 20, have advantage on our concentration checks, and, also we get to now cast a spell with an opportunity attack, which means that we could use True Strike for a little damage bump on an opportunity attack, or sure, Booming Blade, if you've got it, to automatically trigger the extra damage that Booming Blade does when the enemy you hit with it moves, right? They're moving away from you when you get that opportunity attack, so they should trigger it. Now, I don't know how often we'll get opportunity attacks, but this will make them pack a bit more of a punch. And yeah, again, go ahead and take this feat way sooner if you really want. It's not a bad idea at all. We could skip Spellfire Adept, take this at 4, Elven Accuracy at 8, and sure, maybe Spellfire Adept now that we've got, a lot more hit dice to spare. But okay, at level 13, now that we've finally got our intelligence capped and, more importantly, picked up a concentration-free spell that gives us a bonus action attack, I think it's finally time to take that fighter dip that I've been hinting at all this time. There's a lot of exposition around why the delay that I promise I'll get to. Ooh, long expositions and explanations. Yes, please. For now, let's just get into the fighter mechanics that we're going to take at level 13. So yeah, we'd be a fighter 1. We get weapon masteries finally, and we would want to grab mastery in the short sword for the Vex mastery, right, which would help us maintain advantage on all of our attacks. It says that when we hit with this Vex weapon, the next attack we make on the creature has advantage. And then, yes, the scimitar for the Nick weapon mastery, which lets us make that additional attack that we get from wielding 2 different light weapons as part of our action instead of our bonus action, freeing up our bonus action. Before Elminster came along, Nick wouldn't have actually done that much for our damage because we were making a bonus action weapon attack already anyways. But now, we have a spell that doesn't require concentration that gives us a bonus action attack, so it finally makes sense to grab Nick. Free up our bonus action and make what would be then a 4th attack on our turn, so long as we had the orbs to spare, right? And although staying wizard at level 13, would have let us scale Conjure Minor Elementals by another d8 and grab 7th level spells, right? Getting 1 more attack per turn is just better for our damage. Thanks largely to all of the damage we're piling onto each attack thanks to Conjure Minor Elementals. You with me? Okay, another nice thing about being a fighter is that we get a fighting style. I'm going to say go 2-weapon fighting style, of course, so that the nick attack that we make with our action gets to add our intelligence modifier to the damage, like all the rest of our weapon attacks. And then we also get Second Wind, says that as a bonus action twice per day and then recovering 1 use on a short rest, we can heal ourselves for a d10 plus our fighter level. And this brings us to our next damage report. Okay. Since last check, we've gotten a 6th level spell slot that would cause Conjure Minor Elementals to add 4d8 to every single attack. We've finally capped our intelligence, saw a little bump to True Strike, and above all, added a nick attack to our action. And yeah, I'll assume that we've got Elminster's Effulgent Spheres going when combat starts, since it lasts an hour, which would let us get a 4th attack on our turn that does 3d6 damage on a hit, plus CME, of course. One thing to be concerned about, though, that is a ranged spell attack. So if possible, I'd start the round with that sphere from range, use our bonus action right at first, then close into melee, right? If you start your turn near an enemy, could be problematic. You might want to risk an opportunity attack to step away at the end of your turn, perhaps. You've got the shield spell. Or just do something else with your bonus action. But yeah, something to keep in mind. Okay, here's a question that I've avoided talking about until now. What about the Scorching Ray spell? With Conjure Minor Elementals, an upcast Scorching Ray would be making more attacks than we're currently making with our weapons. Wouldn't we be better off just getting Conjure Minor Elementals going and then firing off a bunch of Scorching Rays every round if we had the spell slots to spare? Well, first of all, I did that already, right? The Pyromaniac, right up here. And I built for it, and it's better than what we would be able to do with that shtick. And yeah, bad news about that Pyromaniac. It just blows every other DPR build out of the water, and I'm not sure that anything will ever be able to compete with it. Maybe Conjure Minor Elementals needs to have a cap placed on it so that it only works on like 2 or 3 attacks per round or something. Or maybe give it the old scaling, but only on 1 attack per round. Or maybe it only works on weapon attacks. Anyways, the good news for this build is that no, actually, thanks to the advantage that we're getting on our weapon attacks, which Scorching Ray wouldn't have, and thanks to the fact that we wouldn't be adding our intelligence modifier to those Scorching Ray attacks, nor triggering bonus damage from True Strike, nor getting extra bonus damage from Spellfire Adept, the route that we have taken ends up being better numbers-wise than even, Scorching Ray with Conjure Minor Elementals Rider. Not to mention, this route saves us a lot of spell slots. So I'm going to say, sure, keep the Scorching Ray tactic in your back pocket. When you're fighting a giant or something else that's pretty easy to hit, then Scorching Ray ends up a little better. Or maybe, you've got advantage on a target because someone put Fairy Fire on them or something, right? Then go ahead and let loose with a Gatling gun of empowered Scorching Rays. It'd be a lot of fun as like a once-in-a-while trick, probably. Some nice burst damage. Otherwise, I'm sticking to my swords because that's what I do. And it's what we were built for. So, at this level now, averaged over a 4-round combat encounter against enemies with a 10 armor class, we would do 103 damage per round. And against a 17 AC, it's a nice even 100. All right, that's what I'm talking about. Broke that century mark even against a 17 AC at level 13, and this is almost double the damage since last check. Compared to other DPR builds to date at this level, this puts us in the upper half of Tier 1. Oh, also, one note. Some of the old builds that I used Conjure Minor Elementals on, that original Bladesinger, the Valor Bard, and even the new Moon Druid, were all done with the old version of CME, right? Which scaled a lot faster. It was 2d8 every level upcast. It was nuts. I haven't yet redone those numbers for like the spreadsheets based on the new version of the spell. I'll get to it eventually, but if you're watching this before I have, know that the numbers for those 3 builds, I think it was just those 3, are inflated, need to come down a fair bit. So the damage that we're doing here is a lot closer to those than it looks currently on the spreadsheet. In fact, we have pulled back ahead of that old Bladesinger by a smidge, which makes me happy. So let's see how it looks coming down the home stretch. All right, at level 14, I figured since we're here and we're not going to get to 9th level spells by the final damage report anyways, screw it. Let's grab another fighter level. We'd be a fighter too, because Action Surge is amazing. it gives us a second action on our turn once per short rest, and that would let us actually make attacks on round 1 now if we wanted, if we had it available, right? Bonus action to get Bladesong going, action for Conjure Minor Elementals, and then action surge, take the attack action, making 3 attacks thanks to Nick. That's going to make round 1 feel so much better if you have action surge to spend. But at level 15, it's back to wizard, making us a wizard 13 and granting us the muy poderoso 7th level spells. We can turn ourselves into a dragon with draconic transformation or use Crown of Stars for an even more powerful bonus action ranged attack if we wanted. It's similar to the Elminster Spheres, right? Also lasts an hour, but basically tosses a 4d12 radiant mote instead of a 3d6 sphere. Simulacrum is great if you wanted to be a cheater face, but Reverse Gravity is probably my favorite 7th level spell for crazy turn the world upside down shenanigans. At level 16, we get Song of Victory, and this feature got a significant change for the new book, like I mentioned at the beginning. It used to just add our intelligence modifier to every weapon attack, on top of what was, for us, most of the time, right, our dexterity modifier. And getting an extra 3 or 4 or eventually 5 damage per hit was nice, and a fairly significant bump. Now, it simply says that if we cast a spell with a casting time of an action, we can make a weapon attack with our bonus action. And I mean, this isn't crappy or anything. It'll be nice to, say, throw out a fireball or synaptic static or, sure, a wall of force or scorching ray and still get a weaponized attack too. Cool. More importantly though, yeah, True Strike is a spell with a casting time of an action, meaning that if we use True Strike, even as part of our extra attack, it would trigger this. Meaning, hey, free bonus action attack, which we already have though. So yeah, okay, here comes the long diatribe. I'm gonna need a drink for this. You might too. Right. Knowing that this updated feature was coming in our future, right? Combined with the fact that we can use our intelligence for our attack stat now, really made me feel pretty obligated to not do what would have been the better thing for our damage in Tier 2 of play that we eventually basically did in Tier 3. And that is, I could have started Fighter, prioritized Dexterity, taken the Dual Wielder feat at level 4, which bumps Dexterity though, or Strength, not Intelligence, right? So that by Wizard level 6, thanks to the Nick Weapon Mastery and the Dual Wielder feat, we'd have had those 4 attacks every turn. That is exactly what I did for that first Bladesinger build that I made using the 2024 rules about a year ago. And you could do that here too. And it would look exactly like that build looked. So go ahead and watch that one if you want to go that route. With the changes that we got for the Heroes of Faerûn though, I wanted to build this one different. Both because, yeah, I'd already done that version, but also because it seems almost crazy to ignore the fact that we can use intelligence as our attack stat now, right? And not, prioritize intelligence. And arguably, once we got Conjure Minor Elementals at level 7, I could have bitten the bullet then and taken a fighter dip, right? And grabbed the Dual Wielder feat anyways at, Wizard 8. And you could totally do that if you wanted to, say, skip Elven Accuracy or Spellfire Adept or Warcaster. But by then, we would have been level 9, Fighter 1, Wizard 8. And I knew that the new Elminster's spell, and then later the updated Song of Victory, was just kind of on the horizon, which was going to give us a bonus action attack anyways, meaning that the Dual Wielder feat would have been largely wasted. It would have been useful for levels 9 through 12, I suppose, but still. And we're forsaking bumping our intelligence. You see what I'm saying? So on the one hand, sure, the update to Song of Victory, getting a free bonus action attack on my turn, great. It saves me a feat. Or it saves me a 6th level spell slot for Elminster Spheres. And maybe I got surprised by my enemies and I didn't have that spell activated, or I don't want to make a ranged attack, etc., etc. It's a lot cleaner now. On the other hand, giving me this bonus action attack at level 14 freaking sucks. Because I could have had 4 attacks per turn a long time ago if I would have built for it. But knowing that these alternatives were coming and wanting to focus on intelligence instead made me not want to take that Dual Wielder feat. So knowing that I wasn't going to be going that route made just sticking straight Wizard a lot more appealing, since the Nick Weapon Mastery, all by itself, didn't give me any more attacks on my turn necessarily. And staying straight wizard, by contrast, let me get to extra attack quicker and let me scale my spell slots as quickly as possible for better upcastings of Conjure Minor Elementals, among other things. The end result, though, is, significantly less damage in that mid to late tier 2 of play phase. So it kind of all gets back to my point in the preamble, right? Being strongly encouraged to lean more into the spell aspect of the subclass is awesome and probably makes us a better overall character, definitely a better wizard. But going that path kind of hurts our damage through what is most likely the end game for most campaigns. I guess in the end, I'll just say this. If you think your campaign is going to end by level 12 or sooner, I probably would have taken a fighter dip at level 8 right after getting extra attack and Conjure Minor Elementals, and then at level 9, right, Wizard 8, get the dual wielder feat. Or sure, start fighter 1 if you want. Okay, diatribe over. I really hope that makes sense. I really wish they wouldn't have changed this feature and just left it the old way, honestly, especially since we can use intelligence as our attack stat now. They would have needed to make clear that we could basically double our intelligence modifier on weapon attacks in that case, and maybe they feared that would be too powerful, but if not that, give me the fighter's third attack or something other than what we got. It threw off my groove, and I hate that. Okay, moving on. Level 17 for the last level that we will explore. We're going to be a Wizard 15, and that means we get 8th level spells. So we can cast Illusory Dragon to summon an awesome fake dragon ally, or Maze to just shut down a really nasty opponent, right? At least for one turn, no saving throw. Assuming, of course, that we're not using that spell slot for Conjure Minor Elementals, though now that it's time for our final damage report, I totally will assume that, just to see what the numbers look like, not because it's what I think you should do necessarily. Alright, since last check then, I'm actually going to just assume that we're using Crown of Stars now. After all that, I know, the truth is, you might not need to worry about doing that in-game because you've probably got a magic weapon that increases your hit chance and or adds damage to your attacks, plus your intelligence modifier, right? Or you didn't have Crown of Stars going before combat started, or you didn't want to burn a 7th level spell slot for it, etc., etc. On paper, the 4d12 from it looks better than the 1d6 plus intelligence from our weapon, right? Just exploring the possible, my friends, as always. But Conjure Minor Elementals is doing 6d8 per hit now, potentially. True Strike got its final little bump to an extra 3d6 now at level 17, forgot to mention that. And Action Surge is going to let us make attacks even on round 1, potentially. Beyond that, we've picked up a ton of awesome utility and control potential, as always. Oh, I guess I should mention that, we do have the 2 d10 hit dice from Fighter. We could burn those with Spellfire Adept for a teeny damage bump on 1 round. I'm not going to bother because it's a fraction of a point of damage when averaged out, but sure, maybe if you crit with True Strike, or better yet with Crown of Stars, right? Because that's radiant damage too, another nice reason to use Crown of Stars, give you a backup radiant option. Then go ahead and unload those d10s. Anyways, at this level, averaged over a 4-round combat encounter, we would then, against an enemy with a 10 AC, do 185 damage per round on average, and against an 18 AC, it would be 181. Dang, so good, and so expensive. Both of our highest level spell slots. For the record, if we would have passed on Crown of Stars, the damage was only about 12 to 15 points less, depending on the enemy AC. So no worries if you want to just use your weapons. Anyways, compared to other DPR builds that I've done to date, that is near the very top of tier 1, especially once I adjust those other old version of Conjure Minor Elementals users down a bit. Nobody's touching the Pyromaniac, alas. Let's cap how many times CME can proc to 4, I think, since that's how many attacks this character is getting. Okay, let's break it down with some final thoughts. The tier score for the build here, if we take the damage that they do at all of the enemy armor classes that we calculate for at each of the 4 damage reports, we end up with an 87, which puts them very near the top of tier 1, right where they belong, and that fills my heart because I like to play favorites with my character builds. I mean, what else is there to say? I've talked your ear off already with all of my thoughts about these changes. The reality is, I think, this. Being, if not forced, but strongly encouraged to emphasize intelligence and maybe even delay multiclassing probably really does make this Bladesinger the most potent and powerful Bladesinger that's ever lived. I mean, yeah, the damage is phenomenal, though to be fair, most of that is coming from Conjure Minor Elementals, in the endgame especially. But even if you don't get to that crazy endgame stage, the damage is fantastic. And I mean, they're a full wizard most of the way. And I know I don't need to tell you what that means for how potent a character this is. But of course, this is a wizard who has better defenses than any other wizard, an easier time holding on to concentration than any other wizard, and who, even if they forego concentrating on something to boost their damage, will still outpace any other wizard in damage. If that wizard's concentrating on, Wall of Force or something too. As long as they can stay alive, that is. And making it a high-risk, high-reward powerhouse of dancing and singing destruction. And I am here for it. Can't wait to play my third Bladesinger in a campaign as soon as I possibly can. But that's the build for the week. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed making it. I love you guys. Thank you so much for all that you do for me and for this channel. You are the best. I hope you have a fantastic day and a great week. And if you don't, I sure hope that you'll hang in there. Please don't give up. I believe in you. I do. I hope that you will do good and be kind, and that I see you again really soon. But until then, take care. Bye. I'm singing in the rain, just singing in the rain. What a glorious feeling, I'm happy again. I'm laughing at clouds so dark up above. The sun's in my eyes and I'm ready for love. What's the first musical you ever remember like seeing, whether live or just on, a movie? Singing in the Rain was not my first. I think it was probably Fiddler on the Roof or Sound of Music. But I think Singing in the Rain was maybe third. I used to watch that at my grandparents' house all the time. Gene Kelly, classic. D&D 5, sorry. Find their voice, right? And then jump and crossbow and with a crossbow and cantrip. What the heck? Hold on. I changed this. Why didn't the change save? Oh, yeah. I didn't change it. That's right. Okay. This Bladesinger is making me thirsty. Because we were making a bonus attack weapon. Because we were making a bonus action without any feats. Haste if you already have an amazing. Super fun. But